Rachel, and I'm a kindergarten and first grade autism teacher, and I'm here to show you my classroom today. This is a classroom for students who have mild to moderate autism, pretty high language abilities, and that would be 5 to 7 years old. So first I'll show you a quick scan of the classroom so you can see how it's organized. You can see that there's clearly defined spaces for each of the activities, and that we use the furniture to try to separate those activities. So here we would have a play area. Coming over here is a carpet time or circle time area. From there we have different table centers where the kids can do their activities. And then over here we have a library center, which is also a calming break area, and then a teacher work area. And by using the furniture to separate, it helps the students to stay in their defined areas, as well as minimize distractions for them. If you look at the floor, you can also see that we've been using tape to define boundaries, but school's ending next week, so it's torn up a little bit. So then I'll go through and I just want to show you from the beginning of a school day until the end of a school day some of the visuals that students might use throughout their day. So the first thing that they do when they arrive to school is they come in and they unpack in the morning. So here's a visual that they would use for their morning routine. So the first thing that they would do is they would hang up their backpack outside, put away their folder and notebook, put away their lunchbox, and then check in with their sensory schedule. So over here they have clearly defined areas of where they would put away their folders and their notebooks. They have mailboxes, each with their own name. The lunch area is also clearly defined for them. And since this is a routine, most students only need this for the first few weeks of school, and then as they learn the routine they no longer need this, but it's still a good visual in case they forget something. So then the next thing that they would do is go to check their sensory schedule, and this is one version of a visual schedule that we use in the classroom. My students do sensory 3 times a day, and so they need to find their name and then find their activity based on what time of day it is. From here they would go ahead and do their sensory activity, and then they would come to circle time to start the morning. So moving on over to circle time, you can see that in the beginning the carpet, they have very defined areas again where they sit. So they sit within a circle, and right here is a student name. So anytime that we need to change seats or we have new students joining us, we label all of the seats until they learn where they need to go. If you look here at the circle time wall, these are all the activities we do at circle time, and you can see that it's very neat and very organized and very visually pleasing to the eye, so that students are able to really tune into specifically what area of circle time or calendar they need to focus on. There's not a lot of extra patterning or colors or visual distractions here in this area. We also have a schedule for circle time. So the teacher would select the activities that we're going to do throughout the circle time, and as students complete the activities, we move them over to the all done column, and then students know how much work is expected of them and when they'll be finished. After circle time, we go to centers. So if you look up here, this is my classroom schedule. None of my students need individual schedules right now, so they're all on this group classroom schedule. As you can see, circle time would be finished, we'd be moving on to centers. They would then reference this schedule here and tells them where to go, which location to go to. So all of the tables and all of the centers are labeled. For example, over here you can see this is table 1, and then we have table 2, table 3, table 4. The play area is also labeled, and the library center is also labeled. So as students would come to an activity, here is an example of some visual supports that we would use within an activity. This is a handwriting lesson that I have set up for my group. So the first thing that you'll notice is that all of the materials are already here. That helps kids understand what they're going to do, and it helps kids minimize transitions so they're not having to get up and out of their seats. They can sit down and really focus on the task at hand. One thing that we always have is the group rules, and this helps kids that might need extra behavior support to remind them of what they need to do to have appropriate behavior for the group. So be quiet, listen to the teacher, look at the teacher, have nice hands, sit on the chair, and keep personal space. And then we also have mini schedules or task schedules for each activity. Now these are two different types of schedules for the same activity. So this one would be used for maybe a higher functioning student who is able to read and doesn't need pictures in their visual supports anymore. But it breaks down the tasks that they're going to do for handwriting. So they're going to build with wood pieces, they're going to do chalkboard 3 times, they can do 3 little X's here if they'd like to, and then they have a worksheet to complete, with the direction being write T in the yellow boxes. Another student who might need more support there, he still needs visuals, might not be reading on his own, might have something like this. So again, it's the same activities. Use the wood pieces, do your chalkboard, then there's the worksheet, and then there's also an all done visual. So for some kids, they might leave them on there. Other kids might take them off and give them to the teacher as they complete the activity. Here's an example of how we just might use some visual highlighting or visual cueing to help students understand specifically where they need to focus when they're doing their task. So as you can see, the boxes are highlighted. That's exactly where they need to write their letter T's for their last activity. Some other visuals that we have at pretty much every center would be specific token economies for students. We'll start there. So here's 2 different ones that I use in my classroom. And this token economy is for a student who needs frequent reinforcement. He would ideally be earning a reinforcer or reward at the end of every activity. So for example, for this handwriting task, you would give his stars or his tokens for on-task and appropriate behavior. And we try to be very specific with that. So we might give him a token for, good job following my direction, I like how you did your chalkboard piece, etc., until he has all 5 to earn his reward of iPad or whatever he's working for. This is another token economy for a student who doesn't need as frequent of reinforcement. So it has his daily schedule here, and then at the bottom, you can see when he gets 3 stars, he gets 5 minutes of choice time. So assuming that he had earned his 2 here, and he would get his 3rd one at this handwriting activity, then he would get 5 minutes of choice time at the completion of that activity. Another visual that we often use is a first-then strip. Grab a marker. And for my students, first-then strips are often used for non-preferred tasks. So a lot of times we'll have students who don't want to engage in the task that's presented to them, or they're really interested in doing something different. So for example, if a student is not wanting to do handwriting and they know they have snack coming up next, then we would just do first handwriting, then snack, and this can be left at the table throughout. So anytime that they continue to protest or they're asking when they can have snack, it's a good reminder, well, first we need to do this, and then we need to do this. It can also be broken down further. So you could do, for example, first you need to do your wood pieces, and then we do our chalkboard. It can be used in a variety of ways. And another one here would be a language strip. Since most of my students do have pretty good verbal language skills, they don't need too much language support for visuals, but oftentimes for frustration is where they need it. So when they become frustrated, they don't necessarily access their language and they may begin to engage in behavior. So these are just some examples of things they can say when they get frustrated. I need help, I want to turn, I feel mad, this is hard, I need a break. And then the last one is a choice board, a visual choice board for calming or sensory strategies. So students often get excited or silly and they can be very off task. And these are some quick activities that can bring them back to their attending to the task. Taking deep breaths, squeeze my hands, and ask for a movement break. So these things we have at all centers, all throughout the day, academic, social, play. A lot of these go out into the playground, to the snack area. If students are in mainstream classes, all of these things go with. So then after we would go through our centers, and anytime we would need to leave the classroom to go to snack or lunch, for example, then we have visuals for lining up. So I will show you our lining up structure. Lining up is often very difficult for our students because they might not know what's expected of them. Also, they're very close to their peers. They get silly. They don't have personal space. Without structure, that's a very difficult time for them. So the first thing that we've done is to put lineup squares for the students. So there's a square for each child, And as they line up, they just stand on a square, and that gives them the boundary of how far away they should be from their peers, and also to make sure that they're staying in line and they're not out playing with other things or getting out of line. And then we also have here line-up reminders. So this is just a reminder that if we're leaving the classroom, they probably need something, whether it's a lunchbox to go to lunch or a backpack to go home. Make sure that they have what they need, that they're standing on a square, that they're quiet, their voices are off, and they're looking at the teacher who's in front of the line. That lets us know that they're ready to go, to leave the classroom. And then we also have a line leader, so we know who should be in the front of the line, and students know that they cannot take that line leader spot if that's not their job. And then the last thing for the day would be packing up. So it's very similar to the morning routine, except now they're taking everything out. So the first thing would be to get their backpack, get their folder and book out of their mailboxes, get their lunchbox, make sure if they had a jacket that they get that, and then the backpack goes on a square and they're ready to go home for the day. So those are some quick visuals that we use in the classroom. I hope that you found it useful. And that's about it. Thanks for watching.